In this ongoing effort, we have this province-wide push to get more housing built, right? We've got to add to the supply. With the price of a house and the price of a condo astronomically high, we've got to work on the supply. But then it's like it backfires. Everything you do has this negative impact. So in the past, it's been, okay, we'll take these 2 older homes and we'll knock those down and put in a 25-unit apartment building.
Sure.
Okay, so we lost a couple of houses that had low rent. Oops, but we're getting all this housing built. And now we're seeing projects coming forward where you're knocking down a whole apartment building. And now the number of people losing their lower rent housing grows. And it's a really troubling prospect. You've got dozens and dozens of people saying, where can I live now?
Yeah, I mean, that's the downside as we get aging infrastructure. There are many buildings in Kelowna that were built in the 60s and 70s that are coming to the end of their functional life, and they need significant investment for them to continue to be habitable. They had those obviously come with lower rents, and then people getting displaced when they get rebuilt. But higher density certainly allows for greater efficiency and more available housing for the masses. But many of those buildings will come to the end of their life. So they're going to be invested in one way or another with heavy retrofits or being torn down for new investment.
Right. So this issue got raised around the council chambers, and I think you were quick to point out there really isn't a policy on this. The city doesn't have a framework to turn to in terms of relief for people that find themselves adversely affected by, say, an apartment building knocked down.
Yeah, so there's a few pieces of legislation provincially, like Residential Tenancy Act, which includes notice and compensation for someone that gets displaced. We have a mobile home park redevelopment policy of council for mobile home parks, and there's also the Mobile Home Park Act that also applies to mobile home park redevelopment and displacement of people of sometimes low income. So those are the extent of the policy and legislation that exists today. That's not to say there wouldn't be something further in the future for low income or low cost residential condos or something to that effect. But we have to be mindful, if we're going down that policy path, of the implications of putting an added burden or cost on the development, because it only increases the price of the ultimate housing that gets built there. So you may say, if you displace somebody, then you have to relocate them. You have to compensate them. You have to give them a first right of refusal and then on a condo in that project or something like that. All of those things would likely have some level of implication to the cost of building that project that gets passed on to the buyer or the renter.
Right. It's amazing how many of these efforts, to increase the supply come with this backfire element where, even people who have homes that are near transportation corridors are finding their assessments have gone up because there's redevelopment value. Yep. So this overall plan to increase supply, to bring down the price, ends up increasing the price on the microcosm.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because otherwise people would think it's simple.
Yeah,
it's not simple. It's a complex, nuanced process to put the right kind of housing in the right place at the right price. So that everybody can have a place to call home in BC. Right. So it's complicated, and that's why it hasn't been solved yet. So I think the important thing for me and our planning groups is to keep trying new avenues and new ideas and be innovative and course correct if it doesn't work.
It almost seems like the best you can hope for is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and try to avoid 1 step forward, 2 steps back on the subject of.
Yeah, there are going to be implications for sure. I'd like to think that in Kelowna, we're on the cutting edge or the forefront of some of those new ideas and have been for quite some time. You think of legal suites in houses. We did that a long time ago. Infill, carriage houses, 4 units on a single family lot of sensitive infill. We did that idea like 6 years ago. It's now provincial legislation. So I think we're doing most of the right things when it comes to the housing and trying to be innovative and sensitive to the topics you're talking about, like displacement.